Welcome back to the Show Up or Shut Up podcast with me, Wendy Solganik. This is season 5, episode 8, and today I'm bringing you an interview with artist Arlyna Blanchard. I'm so happy to announce that Arlyna will be joining us as a Fodder School teacher for the first time in Fodder School 5. Arlyna is a resident of Singapore, the owner of her own design firm, an online art teacher, and also an artist that has been a Fodder School participant. Really, I see a lot of myself in Arlyna. We are both pretty much overachievers, and we both really thrive on that feeling of challenging ourselves and learning new skills continuously. I have been a follower of Arlyna's for a very long time on Instagram. Her IG account is a bounty of artistic inspiration and talent, as Arlyna doesn't stick to one style but enjoys the challenge of learning from so many other artists in the world of online art classes. I would say we are kind of like artistic twins who were separated at birth, actually. We even exchanged envelopes of collage fodder many years ago, and I still find myself including Arlyna's painted paper fodder in Fodder School projects to this day. I noticed that, like myself, Arlyna began teaching her own classes, and I hoped that she would say yes to becoming a Fodder School teacher, which she did. You can check out all of her work on Instagram at AB Shanghai. That's AB Shanghai, which is SHANGHAI, as you listen to us chat. So enjoy this episode of Show Up or Shut Up. Welcome to Show Up or Shut Up, a podcast about prolific makers, specifically in the world of mixed media art. I'm your host, Wendy Solganik, also known as Willa Wanders on Instagram, and I'm here to explore the ups and sometimes the downs of being a mixed media artist. I've been a maker my entire life, and I've had four careers involving art. In each episode, we'll talk to artists about how they became prolific makers, why they make art, and the struggles they go through. We'll talk about being an online creative, social media, and how to navigate that world if that's what you're into. Whether you're a lover of mixed media art, watercolor painting, handmade books, art journaling, fiber art, assemblage, collage, or everything all at once, I hope you'll join me on this journey of mixed media making. If you like this podcast, hit the subscribe button and leave a review. You can find me, Wendy, at willawanders.com and on Instagram at willa.wanders and at fodder.school. Welcome to the Show Up or Shut Up podcast, Arlyna. I'm so happy to have you here today.
Oh, I'm excited. Thank you for having me here, Wendy.
I
It's
know you're
good.
excited, but you might even be a little nervous.
I am.
I
I
think
am
I
very.
think a lot of artists are nervous. I think most people, when I interview them, start out very nervous because they don't know what to expect. But really, it's incredibly casual, and we never have a problem with conversation here. So before we get started into hearing all about your artistic life, of course, I always want everyone who's listening to go to your Instagram account so they can see exactly the type of art that you make. And you make a very wide variety of art, which is really exciting. So, what is your Instagram name?
It's AB Shanghai. So it's A for Arlena, B for Blanchard, and Shanghai.
Okay,
SH.
so there's a little clue there about where you live.
It's
Okay,
because I couldn't think of any other name at that time. This was like years ago, and I've never gotten around to changing it. So I just kept it the way it is.
so I think it's a great name actually,
Oh, okay.
because I mean at least, and this is a lot of what I want to ask you about because I'm so curious, but in the sort of community that we inhabit, which is the same community, you don't see very many Instagram accounts of people in Japan or China or anywhere really in the Asian continent and islands and all of that. So, will you start just by telling me about how you got into this whole mixed media thing and maybe sort of touch upon why, at least from my perspective, it seems like you're the only one from your side of the planet.
Think there's a few more who are in Shanghai and or you like one of them used to be in Shanghai, but moved to Beijing. But yeah, so how do I start? Okay, I've been drawing since I was little. I think that was the only thing that I did a lot of instead of my studies. So,
Where were you? Like,
and
where did you live when you were little?
oh, yeah. I was born in the Philippines and I basically moved to Taiwan after a year after I graduated from university. And then I spent about 12 years there. I got married and then basically we moved to Shanghai. So I've been living in Shanghai for, well, this is my 25th year, which is crazy because I never thought I'd be here this long. I, well, my ex and I had thought about staying here for a couple years and then we would be moving elsewhere. Then somehow things changed when we decided to start a business. And then up until now, the business is still going on and I'm still there with the business, but not my ex. And yeah, so I've looked at different opportunities elsewhere, but I feel like because this is something that I've put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into. So I've decided to just stay here for now until when things don't work and or if I'm going to be retiring. But definitely it's been a lot of very interesting 25 years seeing China change over the years, how much progress it's made.
First question is, so are you ethnically Filipino and not ethnically Chinese?
I'm actually mixed. I'm part Chinese and part Filipino. So I went to a Catholic school that was a private Catholic school run by some Chinese priests who at that time had escaped from China during the Cultural Revolution. So they set up the school in my hometown. So it's a bilingual school. But because we were speaking a lot of local dialects, so a lot of the Chinese that we spoke was more of a dialect from another province, which is where my grandparents came from. So then, like, there's a national language where everyone understands, which is called Mandarin. We don't really speak it because we speak a dialect, a different kind of dialect. But I could read and write Chinese. It's just not the spoken language. So when I went to Taiwan, I had to relearn it again, just more of the speaking side, but also the writing and the reading part.
So,
And that
okay, I'm just trying to understand. So you grew up in the Philippines and you went to Catholic school, which, if am I correct in that there are a lot of Catholic Filipinos?
oh yeah, majority of Filipinos are Catholics.
Okay, so they must have been converted like 1,000 years ago, or I don't even know how long ago. Am I correct? Am I correct in thinking that the Philippines is a very Catholic country, Arlena?
Yes, you can say that, but I think there's some other religion that's starting to crop up, but majority of Philippines is Catholics.
What other religion is starting to crop up?
Well, there's a lot of other Christian denominations like Lutherans, I think there is Protestants, and some other very small kind of religion, but it's still majority Catholic country.
Gotcha. So you were sent to Catholic school, and in Catholic school, did you learn English as one of your languages?
Oh yeah, we spoke English everywhere, but it's because it was a bilingual school, so we had to learn the Chinese as well.
And what
And
about the language of the Philippines? Is it called Tagalog?
yeah, it's Tagalog, but so that's kind of like if you think about it, like Mandarin Chinese. So it's the same thing. It's like a national language that everyone, wherever you go, would understand. But then each different location, each different province or island has their own kind of local dialect.
Well, that's
So
wild
let's
because
say,
how many
yeah,
islands are there in the Philippines?
currently or last that I know, it was like about 7,101.
Okay, that is wild. There are 7,000, more than 7,000 islands
Yeah.
that comprise the country, and every little island developed its own language. Does each island
Yeah.
have cultural differences as well?
Well, there are some very unique traditions or different sort of, how do you say, like feasts. Feasts are like really big thing in the Philippines because of the Catholic influence, the because of the Spanish influence too. But so for example, let's just say for example my hometown, which is one big island, and in that island there's like when you go to different parts, then they might have a slightly different variation of a dialect. So I'm not sure how many dialects there are, but I remember when I went up north, then they had a slightly different dialect because they were kind of influenced by the dialect from another island. And then if I went down south, then they would have a different dialect. So even just in the island from my hometown, then there's already so many different dialects.
I'm so curious now to look at photographs of the Philippines. I think I had heard before that it was a lot of islands, but the number of islands is
Yeah, that
astonishing.
makes traveling around a bit more tricky because not every island is connected. So it's like a couple weeks, well, last week I was in the Philippines for some family thing, and just to see my cousin, we had to fly back to Manila and then back down. So it wasn't really like something that could is connected because some of the airports are not connected to each other.
Wow, so I'm just so curious about what eating was like when you were a kid. Like, was the food very, very local and fresh? Because it would be difficult to transport food all around a bunch of islands.
Yeah. Well, because my dad was Chinese and my mom was Filipino, well, part Filipino. So there was a lot of it was more of a mix between Chinese and local Filipino food. But yes, majority of the food was were fruits or seafood because we live by the sea. But I
Oh,
hate seafood.
oh gosh, I
Because
love
especially with fish with the thorns.
oh, so what do you remember from when you were a kid about your own creativity? Was that something that you were exposed to in your home, in your school? Like how did that come into your world?
Okay, the biggest influence, and I'm still up until now so grateful. There is this guy, he was our what we call a house boy. So he's kind of like someone who helps around the house. So my parents would ask him to do something. So kind of like a maid, but a guy, a house help. Is that what you call it?
Like
Something like that.
housekeeper?
But anyway, yeah, not really because he's just one of the staff. And so but he stays at our home. And so he is deaf and mute, but he draws really well. So I would always like we would watch TV, he would we would watch Wonder Woman. This was from a long time ago, right? Linda Carter Wonder Woman. So after that, then we would and then he would if he finds a piece of paper, he would start sketching. And so whenever I see him do that, and I would always sit next to him and copy what he was doing. So he would always draw these amazing figures of different superheroes or even just different people. And I'd test him as to sketch someone or sketch me or whatever. But every time I would always copy him. So he had a major influence on me growing up because back then no internet or anything and or TV was I mean, I felt like TV was rubbish. So the only thing that was interesting was watching Wonder Woman or Bionic Man and on
Oh my
TV.
god, we have so much in common. So, was this in the 1970s?
Yeah.
That's
So
the same thing I was watching in 1975, Wonder Woman and the Bionic Woman.
yeah. Yeah, so yeah, that's how I kind of started getting into drawing. So we would constantly be drawing, and then I remember vividly when was in kindergarten that in the afternoon after our lunch break, I would go into the classroom and start drawing on the chalkboard all this Wonder Woman and whatever figure that I would remember drawing. But yeah,
Wow,
so that's
so
kind of
that
how
is
I.
actually astonishing to me that you guys had those American television shows in the
Right.
1970s.
Yeah, because after the Spanish came the Japanese, and then, of course, Americans came to liberate the Philippines from the Japanese.
Was that welcome or not welcome?
I think it was welcome because this was during the war, World War II, and MacArthur came exactly to my hometown and landed there and said he was going to come back, his return, and is liberating the Philippines from the Japanese.
That was probably a good thing. I don't know that much about it, but that was probably good.
Yeah.
I
Well,
hope it was
actually, yeah, actually, when I was in my hometown, I managed to see this private museum, and it had a lot of these memorabilia from that time. And there's quite a big influence from the Americans in terms of school, well, in terms of the language. That's basically how the Philippines started to speak more English than Spanish. It quickly got Spanish quickly got overshadowed by English.
wow. A lot of Filipinos moved to the United States. Did your family ever think we wanna move to the United States?
Not really. We didn't. I don't think my parents really had that drive. I have a few aunts and uncles who had moved to the States, but yeah, my family were not really that keen about it.
Gotcha, but you do have aunts and uncles that moved to the States?
Yeah,
Do you know where they live? Do they live in California?
there's one who used to live in California, and then one in Chicago, and the other ones moved to Arizona, I think.
Wow. So, okay, so you're drawing with the houseboy, you're falling in love with it, and then was there any kinda arts and crafts in the Catholic school?
Oh yeah, we had. But I felt like I wasn't really that great with crafts. For some reason, I felt like I failed that part and then but we got to high school, and for some reason I ended up doing a lot of lettering. So I would create this lettering for my classmates to because we were asked to do these reports when we were in high school, and the reports were all like you have to put these typed up sheets of reports and or whatever report it was with pictures or whatever, then you have to put it into a manila folder. And so the manila folder, we needed apparently the teachers needed us to have the title of the report on it, but I ended up doing lettering on my report, and then everyone saw it, and then every time we would have a report, then all my classmates would ask me to, at least that's what my classmates also remember about me, doing all the letterings on their report, so that everyone would queue up to say, oh, me first.
Were you always fascinated by the letter forms?
Yeah, because I think I well, because like I said, I was copying our houseboy, and so he was also doing some lettering, so I would also copy those. So and then I ended up when I got to high school, kind of making my own sort of style, creating different sort of lettering style and different decor and making them getting them a bit more decorative than they're supposed to be.
Do you feel that the lettering still shows up in the work that you do today?
I think University, my first year at university, we had a class about typography and lettering, and that really helped me understand a little bit more of typography in terms of how it's used in design. And because I'm a graphic designer, that's the first thing that kind of is what I look at when we're creating, especially when we're creating logos or when we're creating anything that's design related that needs some typography with it. And actually, having those basic training, some things that you won't. I'm not exactly sure because nowadays things are so digital that there's not. I'm not 100% sure whether the basic typography is still being taught or if it's just more of, they just dive directly into it, but or the theory behind lettering. I don't know if that's still
I think
being
like,
taught.
I know that there's a school that I wanted my daughter to apply to, a college in America, and we went to visit and we met the typography teacher. There's a whole course
Mm.
in
Oh,
typography. So and I took a
yeah,
course in typography when I was in my early 20s, a college level course in typography. So I do feel like it is still being taught, at least in some design programs. It is such an important part of design. It's like to understand
yeah.
it is so important. Okay, so when you were in high school, or I don't know what you call high school there, but when you were in your later years of like before university, what were you thinking about careers?
Oh, hands down, it was design. Anything to do with art. I think I didn't understand that there was something such a thing as commercial art or advertising art. The only thing I knew was that I was going to go into the art field, and my dad persuaded me not to do it because in the Chinese back then in the Chinese mentality, art doesn't pay. There's no job. That was the thinking behind it. That was the stigma behind it. That you take art, you basically are not going to earn anything. And plus, in my hometown, we didn't have art programs. So that means to say I had to go all the way to Manila, the capital. And my dad wasn't really keen about me going that far for university. But I told him I'm not going to waste my time learning something that I'm not interested in. So I managed to persuade him to let me go and study there. So when I was in Taiwan, I was working Philips Design. So that's the Philips company, Philips Electronics. And they had basically a group within the company that was dedicated to doing design. So I used to work there. And then when we moved to Shanghai, there was no design office here. So what I ended up doing was just doing freelance work. And a lot of them were people I've known from my Taiwan days. And I was doing some freelance work for them.
So you go to high school in the Philippines, then
Mhm.
sorry, tell me again, where did you move? Where did you went to university in which country again?
Still in the Philippines, to the capital city, Manila.
Got
Uh,
you.
I
And then
went
so okay, why did you leave Manila after that?
My dad wanted me to see if I could get a job in Taiwan. And because my sister was in Taiwan, so he thought, like, yeah, why don't I go to Taiwan and see if I could get a better job or something? And
Okay.
yeah, so I went to school to study Chinese again. And at the same time, trying to find work as a designer, but it was not very easy because I was not familiar with the language yet, as in like the spoken language. So it took a bit of time, but I finally landed a job as a designer in a record company, and then I learned how to use Photoshop 1.0 at that company because the boss was very techy and he wanted to move from doing manual final artwork into and creating actual artwork in a computer on a Mac. So that's how I learned how to use the computer. And then, yeah, I went to work for Philips Design.
Okay,
Uh,
and where was, like, your office for Philips?
it was in Taipei still, in Taiwan.
Okay. So did I tell you this when we've spoken before that my dad worked for Philips? Did I ever mention
Yeah,
that?
yeah, you
I did,
mentioned.
okay. It is such a small world. It's so
I
crazy.
know.
So,
Yeah, it's
okay,
famous.
alright. So what was the job at Philips? Like, what were you designing for them?
Yeah, it was a very strange kind of work at the beginning because it was at that time for Philips design to exist in a certain location in any part of the world. It was more because there's a business that needed design support. So at that time in Taiwan, the Philips design office was more supporting the monitors business, those CRT, the old monitors, the LCD monitor or the CRT monitors, those big bulky monitors. So that's the design that I was doing was more on the graphics that goes on each product. So could be the buttons, like icons that goes on the buttons, like what's the size of the icon, and very, very technical sort of design until we were allowed at that time when I joined, we were allowed to get work from outside of Philips. So prior to that, it was all just work within Philips. And then when I joined, it so happened that we were allowed to go outside. And so I was able to do some design for other companies, which is the first in all of Philips design that we were that location that I was in was the very first office that managed to get a project outside, and it was a graphic design work, which is designing for mini disc. Do you know mini disc?
No.
Okay, these are kind of like think of CDs, but they're CDs that are tiny and they're kind of enclosed in a plastic case, kind of like a tape, those plastic cases, but
Yeah.
this one you don't get to open, and they're very thin and they're square, they're small square.
Are they
Anyway,
storage devices?
no, they were usually for music back then. And yeah, so I designed those for a big major company do that in Taiwan. And this was the first time that Sony launched these mini discs. And then I think they did another relaunch of those a few years later. But yeah, these are like mini storage discs that you can record, but mostly it was used more for music because Sony had these players just like a Walkman, but this was a Walkman that played mini disc.
It's possible that I knew what they were, like, decades ago and just forgot.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
were you still working for Philips, but you guys were designing a Sony product, or did you move over and work for Sony?
No, we were still Philips, but it's not really a Sony product. It was branded under a different name. But
Oh,
they were
wow.
but the player is a Sony, so you can only play it on a Sony player. But these are manufactured by another company, and they're a big producer of CD-ROM, CDs at that time. So mini disc was just an extension of their product range.
So at this time in your life when you're doing all of this very technical product design, do you
Yeah.
have kind of a life on the side where you're doing your own art? Or is that just like you're too at this point, do you have kids? Like what's going on? Do you even have time for art
No.
on the side?
No, at that time I wasn't married yet. So everything was all work, work, work because, well, actually, in between those Taiwan, I spent 12 years in Taiwan. So in between then, I came to China in 94 and I studied Chinese painting more because I wanted to get away from Taiwan for a bit. So I decided I wanted to study Chinese painting, at which point my dad didn't talk to me for 6 months.
Okay,
because
hold on.
we
So
did
you have this job at
this is
Philip,
so much drama, I'm
and then
sorry about
you
it.
decide to totally quit your job and move to China
Yeah,
to study Chinese painting?
yeah, it
Okay,
was
that's a
only for 6
huge,
months.
huge life decision.
Yeah, because at that time, China wasn't really open yet, and my dad thought, like, for a woman, for a girl to be on her own with not knowing anyone in a country that he doesn't know anything about what was happening inside, he was very much against it. But I'd already made up my mind that I wanted to come and study Chinese painting. So
Was this
eventually,
something that you had to pay to go to school, or was it sponsored by the state? Like, if you could get in,
no,
it was just free?
no, I have to pay myself. It was more because I wanted to just do something else other than doing the work that I was doing.
Okay.
So, yeah, so it was just some excuse. I don't know if it was a you'd call it an excuse to get away, but yeah.
Did you become a full-time art student?
No, I was okay because this is the time when China was not open yet. So I enrolled at this school near Beijing. It's one of the major universities in China. And it so happened that they had this program for traditional Chinese painting. And my Chinese teachers in Taiwan kept saying that, oh, this is a good school and you should go. So I applied and they accepted me. So I was the first foreign student that they actually accepted to that Chinese painting program. And it so happened as well that when I was studying there, one of the famous Chinese painter was at that school teaching calligraphy. So I was able to get into his class at the last minute because I was a foreign student. I had completely no background in Chinese painting. And so the teachers were kind of like supporting me quite a lot, doing some after hours lessons because to kind of bring me up to speed. But yeah, I think that was the best decision I made in terms of going against my dad. But in the end, I think he realized that it turned out to be a good decision.
And where in China was this painting school?
It's in a city called Tianjin. So it's near Beijing, about 2 hours away. But it's also one of the major cities in China because it's near a port.
And how long were you at the painting school for?
This was for 6 months for one semester because that's how
Okay.
much I could afford to pay.
Wow. So then what did you do when you were finished with that?
Yeah, I after that, then I went back to Taiwan and did some more work before, and then a couple years at the same company, I was able to get the job at Philips Design.
Oh, you got your job back, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, when I got back to
So it
Taiwan.
was like a sabbatical from work. Like you just needed a break. You wanted to explore your creative side, that creative side. Okay, so
Yeah.
then you
But sabbatical was not a word, but back then.
back then, yeah, but that's really what it was. Okay, so when
Yeah.
did you meet your husband?
I met him when we were working because he used to work for Philips as well. And that's the reason why he came to China to set up the research lab. So we
Wait,
met in Taiwan.
okay, all right. And when you had how many kids do you have?
I have twins, I have two.
Wow.
And
So when you were raising them, were you staying at home with them or were you also working and raising them?
oh no, yeah, we didn't have kids until about 5 years into marriage. And I was working literally up until the last minute because I didn't know that I had a doctor's appointment, but I didn't realize that, or it didn't sink in what the doctor told me, that she's arranged for me to deliver that afternoon. And I was still working until the nurse called me, "Where are you? The doctor's waiting for you. You're
Oh my
supposed to
gosh.
deliver today." I was like, "What? What?" I was like, "Oh my god." And then so I had to get everything all settled. I said, "Tomorrow, I'll come to the hospital tomorrow." So that's anyway, so I was working up until the last minute. before
And
I
this
gave
was in
birth.
Taiwan.
No, this was in Shanghai already.
Oh, so you transferred from
Yeah,
Taiwan to Shanghai?
yeah. No, my ex did. That's why we came here because he was opening a research lab in Shanghai.
Oh, and that was 25 years ago.
Yep,
And then how long after you moved to Shanghai were your kids born?
about 5 years.
Gotcha. So right when you were newly married, you moved to Shanghai.
Yeah.
And Shanghai is pretty awesome, isn't it?
Oh yeah, I think so.
I think so too. I mean, a lot of what I've seen is just through your eyes, which is amazing. And so when did you start exploring from like an artistic perspective the city you lived in?
You mean doing urban sketching?
Yeah.
I think it was about 10 years ago now. And in a way, I kind of feel bad that I didn't start earlier than that because there's been a lot of changes in the city. There's things that I wish that I had documented through sketching from a long time ago that I remember. But I didn't start until about 10 years ago.
Before you started doing that urban sketching, did you have your own art practice?
Let me think. I'm trying to think back to when I was I think doing some scrapbooking. I think you also did some scrapbooking.
Yes. Okay. So tell me about that. I didn't even know that was really a thing in an Asian culture. So because your kids were little, right?
Yeah. Because they were still little and you want to document them growing up, then I started digital scrapbooking because I figured I don't have all those materials. Back then in Shanghai, you can't really get all those art materials. There was either we'd go to Hong Kong and buy them and bring them back, or I'd order them overseas. But then it was always so tricky to get them from overseas. So what I ended up doing is doing digital scrapbooking first, and then and we did project. I did Project Life, and
Okay, that
then
is fascinating to me. So at the time, was it like were you were you getting the information just from the internet, like websites?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Because I mean, social media in China was non-existent then, and with everything being blocked, like Facebook or Instagram, so that was my only source of art stuff. And then I met Vanessa, and then we got into Project Life together. And she used to live in Hong Kong, and so we got to talking about art journaling,
Wait,
and
how did
she
you meet Vanessa? That's so random.
I know. I'm thinking yeah, I think it was from when I was posting on Instagram and we were and Project Life. I'm trying to think now
So this
whether that
must have been very, very early days of Instagram, like around
yeah, yeah,
2010 or
yep,
2011. So when you say that like there wasn't social media in China, if you were posting on Instagram in around 2010 or 11, that's like
yeah,
the beginning of Instagram.
yep. Yes.
Okay, so the Chinese government did allow Instagram.
No, it was via VPN.
Oh, okay.
There's the Great Firewall of China. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So so you get on Instagram and you start connecting with artists from all over the world. Is that what's
Yeah,
happening for you?
yeah, yeah. But I
That must
think,
have been so exciting.
yeah, but I was doing, yeah, mostly Project Life and digital scrapbooking, but I
So
wasn't sharing digital scrapbooking then. I
can
think
you
the
explain
first time
what
I s
Project Life
okay.
was or is?
Yeah, Project Life was started by Becky Higgins, I
Okay,
think.
I was obsessed with her back
Yeah,
like 20 years ago
she
or something,
did a
25
lot of
years ago.
scrapbooking. Yeah. So Project Life is this it started as this one huge album, which is a 12 by 12, and it's got pockets in it. You could buy these sort of kits or you could just buy the album. And
Wait,
so
were
the whole
you able to buy the album living in Shanghai?
Oh, I got it sent to my uncle in California, and my uncle sent it to me. So
Incredible. Okay.
it was like one of those rare things I oh my god, it's like this is so difficult to get. But then once I started that, it's like I felt, oh, this is a good project to do. And I had to figure out how to get it the next year for the next year, like in a different way. So and
Wow.
and that's, I think, how I met Vanessa because we were doing Project Life, and then she was living in Hong Kong, and then she found a seller in Hong Kong, and then we sort of shared a kit together. So with all those journal cards and all those inserts that you could get to go with the kit.
That is incredible. Just to think that you guys, like, so many of us started in scrapbooking, essentially.
Yeah, yeah,
Like that was such a huge movement and such a huge inspiration. I don't know
yeah,
if Becky Higgins will ever listen to this, but if anybody knows Becky Higgins, like, please
yeah.
tell her to listen because she was so inspirational. Like, she inspired in many ways
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
many entrepreneurial things that I did after being influenced by her.
Mm.
It's so
Yeah.
crazy. Okay, so you've got little kids, scrapbooking is at its peak. You and Vanessa over in Asia are getting your hands on scrapbooking materials, and then where
Yeah.
does it grow from there?
Well, I was seeing that she was doing art journaling, so I tried Get Messy. This was in the early years of Get Messy.
Do you
And then,
remember approximately what year
yeah,
this was?
let me try to see if I can find a record of when I have my Get Messy stuff.
So it's after you've already been scrapbooking for a while. And then I it's interesting because at the same time that I was scrapbooking, I knew that art journaling was a thing. Did you know that art journaling was a thing because you had seen, like, blogs on the internet and stuff?
No, I actually wasn't sure what it was about exactly. And then all I was seeing was Vanessa's work. And then, so I signed up with Get Messy and did a few. And then I thought, like, oh, there's this thought of why isn't mine looking the way it's supposed to be? There's this kind of look that how it's, I don't know, in my head, this is how it's supposed to look. And then for some reason, I wasn't getting that look. And then I decided maybe it's not for me.
You're
So I
saying
kind of
the
stopped.
look of the art journal pages, you were not able to achieve them of what
Yeah.
you thought it was supposed to look like.
Yeah, I don't know. I was just thinking, oh, those like Vanessa's work or Kaylee's work, they all look interesting. They look so cool with adding all those paints and those collage. But I was thinking, why doesn't mine look so good? And I think a lot of artists, when they're starting out, they also have that kind of feeling. At least when you get into art journaling or scrapbooking or
It's
those
something
kind.
that does take a long time, at least for me. I mean, I've definitely been art journaling for I don't even know if it's 5, 6, or 7 years at this point, and I'm still just starting to, like, find my way with it. It's just something that is not it hasn't been, like, some kind of quick thing for me where I'm just
Mm.
like, "Oh, I'm art journaling now," and, like, it's, like, instantaneous, like, I get that messy look that somehow is cohesive. Like, it's taken me
Yeah.
a long time to I can make art, but it's not necessarily I know what you mean. It's, like, not necessarily achieving something like a look that you're looking for, but I feel like
Yeah.
I'm starting to find that for myself. It's taking a
Mhm.
while.
Yeah, I think, I mean, it's the same with urban sketching. I think, in a way, I kind of also stopped because I was looking at the artist, the sketchers sitting next to me, and it's like, why isn't my sketch looking good or out of proportion or something like that? And then I realized that actually I could just do my own take on what the scene looks like. It doesn't have to be exactly the way it is. And that's when changing that sort of perspective, changing that whole mentality made me get back into urban sketching again and not worrying about how mine looks, but more of, okay, this is my take. This is how I feel about the whole view that I'm seeing, and this is how I'm interpreting it. You know what I mean? So that, in a way, that kind of also put me back into the art journaling part, which is to try to not have that fixed thought that this is how it's supposed to look, but rather do my own interpretation.
So, when you're playing around with scrapbooking and urban sketching and art journaling and these things, are you working outside your home with twins? Or at this point, are you like, were you ever a stay at home mom with twins?
No, never really stay at home because it was not an opportunity that I had. It was I had to work, and because we had the business then, so I had to run the business. And so it was more of the evenings and the weekends. But I didn't really start urban sketching until after my divorce because I needed some outlet to do something. And that's when I got into meeting other people and going out and doing urban sketching. And it's the same with a lot with my art journaling. I think it just took off after then because I just needed something, an outlet for art to get back into my art, which is something that got sidetracked because of the business, because of having kids to take care of during the weekends and evenings.
So that's kind of an interesting thing about life is that sometimes when people have a failed marriage, they actually end up with a lot more personal time to explore their own
Yeah.
interests because they if they're sharing custody or there's even some type of visitation with the other parent, all of a sudden a mom who would really never have any time off
Yeah.
ends up with time to themselves. Like when I owned my printing company for 15 years, my business partner was divorced with 2 kids, and she had so much time to
Mm.
herself, and I
Yeah.
was also like, she was a working mom, but she was divorced, and I was a working mom, and I was married, and I never
Mm.
had time to myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's an interesting, like, sad fact of, like, this is the upside of divorce is, like,
Yeah.
people you can have, like, your own interests again. So how old were your
Yeah.
kids when you got divorced?
Think they were about 8 or 9 years old. Yeah,
Okay, so
about
they were
8
still
years
pretty
old.
young, and you
Yeah,
and your husband were running this design firm in
yeah,
Shanghai.
yeah, yeah.
How long did you guys continue to run that together?
Only until after the divorce was final, and
Gotcha.
then
So
about a year
working
or so, I
with
bought
your
him out. Yeah,
working with your spouse in a business has to
yeah,
be incredibly challenging.
yeah, it is. But, yeah, it was a lot of other issues, I think, but in a way, it's a blessing in disguise, I guess. Otherwise, yeah, I won't be able to be doing art and be able to focus on what I enjoy a lot.
So how like, you're still running your firm today. How many hours a week are you working at your primary job?
It's still right now it's 8 hours majority of the time. So we been I've made the change with in terms of how we're working. So I try to make sure that staff don't work on the weekends. Only when it's absolute necessity that we have to actually come into the office on a weekend, but it's a bit rare. I used to work until 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, but I've changed that over the years because I don't think that's sustainable.
Wait,
Uh,
2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, in
yeah,
Shanghai time?
yeah.
Were you starting
That
work
was
at
the
9 AM
normal.
and then working all just continuously?
Yeah, yeah. That was yeah, those were the years. And then yeah, so but in Shanghai, it's quite safe that I could walk home at that time in the evening. So it wasn't really a big deal. It's just that we had that time where it was like for days. I mean, for a year, more than a year. I was that was the life. That was my life.
Who was
Working.
taking care of your kids, taking them to school, cooking for them, making sure they were bathing? Who was doing all that?
We had a sort of a nanny who was there, and yeah, those were, in a way, they were my biggest regret that I wasn't there most of the time. But there's no point in turning back the time because that was how it was back then, trying to
Yeah.
earn some money and keep the business going.
Yeah, you're an incredibly hard worker. Wow. So, what is life like for you now as far as balancing? So you're saying you limit it to 8 hours of work per day, and
Yeah.
then are your kids grown now and out of the house? Do they still live with you?
I'm an empty nester now, which is just trying to get back into my groove because, yeah, my kids has gone to uni in the UK. And
Really? Where
yeah,
do they
so
are they together at the same school or at 2 different
no,
schools?
separate city, separate school.
Wow. What cities are they in the UK?
One's in Cornwall and one's in Bournemouth. So
Wow.
they're twins, but they rather be having separate lives right now because they've been together all their life. So now it's their chance to be separate. Yeah, so I came back and it was like this very quiet apartment now. And but yeah, but I spent today like today I spent the whole day making art, catching up on Fodder School. So that was yeah, in that kind of gives me some time to do more art and keep the loneliness away, which is in a way good.
Yeah, I think so many people our age, I imagine we're pretty similar in age. We hit that point where our kids don't really need us so much.
Yeah.
And like so much of so much of my life was filled up with my kids being around and now they're not around. I do have one that's at home, but he just has one more year of high school. And it's like I have to figure out like what is the what is the rest of my life going to look like
Yeah.
because I'm
Yeah.
I'm home, working from home, and I'm lonely working from home. This is not sustainable.
Yeah. Yeah.
So at least you go to so you're saying you still go to an office 8 hours a day.
Yeah, I have to. In the beginning, we used to have the home next to the office, and that's not great because it blurs the line between when you're supposed to stop, because the office is just right next door. So we've made it a point where we separate the office and the home. And yeah, but now, I mean, yeah, I still have the office to go to, and it's very strange because when COVID hit, everyone in my office just wanted to get back into the office because it was for them much better to be working from office than from home, at least. And for me, the same thing. I can't work from home, like work, as in like my daily work. But if it's to do with art journaling or to do with other form of art, then I can stay home all day without going out.
But if all you had to do was do art journaling and you never had to go to an office, it may not feel as good as you think it does.
Yeah, maybe because now I'm on a holiday. I have a 6-day holiday. So staying home for these 6 days, but probably longer than that, I'm probably going to go crazy.
Yep. I need another outlet besides being at home. Something something is not quite balanced over here. I keep saying that. I've been saying it for years, but I never change anything. But okay, I want to ask you the question that I've asked every single person that I've interviewed
Mm.
in this season of my podcast, which is what are your favorite colors and why?
Well, my favorite color this past few years has been hot pink, fluorescent pink, neon pink, different shades of fluorescent neon pink. And I think it's more because I like it because I can use it in my art, and it's something I wouldn't dare wear though as
That is
clothes.
so interesting.
Because it's at least something very extrovert. For me, that color is very extrovert, and I'm not that. I'm the opposite of that. So I feel I like that color because it kind of pops up, but then it's complete opposite of me.
So,
It's a very strange
do you
kind of
remember
fantasy.
when you first started using a lot of that color? Like, where you noticed, "Oh, wow, I really like that neon fluorescent pink color," because I also use that color a lot, and I know exactly where I got inspired, but I also think that, like, there's a lot of love for that color in our
Yeah,
community on Instagram.
yeah, I've been seeing it a lot.
For
Um,
years though, like ever since I got involved in the whole art journaling community, that was like one of the colors. Honestly, I'll just say it was Kaylee. Like
yep.
Kaylee was
I
like,
think
"I
that
love
was
this color."
yeah, it was the Get Messy when I started at Get Messy. And so ever since then, I've been like looking for different art materials that is in that color.
I love your sense of color. When I look through your Instagram account, there's so
Mhm.
much about the way that you use color that is what I'm attracted to, which is
Thank
there's
you.
a lot of different colors, but you also have the balance of all of the neutrals.
Hmm. Thank you.
So,
I'm not sure.
what?
I don't know. I mean, I know that a lot of teachers always talk about the color wheel, the complementary colors and the contrasting colors and stuff like that. But somehow I'm trying, I mean, for me in my art journals or in the projects that I work on, I don't want to overthink things because if I start to think about that, then I get stuck. So I'd rather just use whatever I feel using at that point or on that project or on that page that I'm working on and not think about the technical aspect of it. Because
So
for me,
you
art
would be
journal,
happy to use any color if in the moment you're attracted to that
yeah,
color.
yeah, because yeah, a lot of times it's more to do with what I feel and because it's for me the art journaling part is a release and because in my line of work graphic design it's more commercial. It's more of trying to please the mass or trying to please the client. So it has to be of certain color to match their expectation or to match their identity or the use of their colors in different materials in different communication materials so and then having to think about what colors match or what colors complement each other so for me when I get into my own projects it's a matter of doing or picking out the colors that is calling me at that point of time rather than having to think, oh, okay, these two colors won't match because these are not complementary colors or they don't sit in the wheel in the right direction. So yeah, I don't know if that makes sense.
Okay, so here's my observation. So I'm gonna tell you, I'm looking intently at your work. So here's what
Oh.
I observed. Your color palette is the rainbow. You do not limit yourself in any
Yeah,
way from like, you're not like, oh, I don't like that color or I don't like that color. You use
yeah.
all of the colors. So I would say you're a rainbow person, but
Okay.
you are not a rainbow person when it comes to a spread in a journal. You may
Mhm.
not realize this because maybe you've never really like looked at your Instagram account the way that I'm looking at it right now. But even if you're not intentionally creating color schemes on purpose,
Yeah,
your work as a professional graphic artist has given you an intuition about what works well together. And all of your art journal spreads are very cohesive from a color palette. Like it is not random what is going on your pages as much as you're saying it is. You may not, again, you may not be, it may not be with your thinking mind that you're creating these color palettes. But if I look at each one as an individual thing, it's very, very cohesive. You've got beautiful, beautiful color combinations going on when you look at each one individually. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes sense. Thank you. I did not expect that. It's probably just the subconscious mind.
Yeah, it's just from the practice because it's like you
Yeah.
actually went to design school and you again, I don't want anybody to feel pressure. I'm just so curious about where people's sense of color comes from. So,
Mhm,
what do you think it is about you that loves every color versus some people that just don't love every color? Like I'll be honest, like red is
mhm,
not a color I really ever use intentionally. It's just not
mhm,
I don't know why, but I don't like that color. Maybe I do know why. There's a little history between the United States and another major superpower, not
mhm.
China. There's another major superpower that we're still in conflict with, and I don't know if that's where my, like, aversion to the color red comes from, but you don't have an aversion to any color. You truly, like,
Yeah.
love all colors. So, where do you think your love of color of all the colors comes from?
That's a good question. I think it's probably just just seeing colors like okay, if I'm walking in the street and I see this color and then immediately that brings to mind like, oh, I want to try that color. What will it look in my art journal? Like if I use that, what will it look? And that combination, okay, that combination looks interesting. It's something I never would think about. So then I would like I said, my art journals are the place for me to experiment and just play. So if I look at, I've been looking at my paints and the colors that I have in my arsenal with all my different art materials, and I seem to have so many different colors. Like I don't, it's so I don't know. I like to experiment, I guess, with so many different colors.
I
And
love that. I mean, your work is amazing. I don't know if you have the kind of confidence about you that I have about you, but you're like an artistic superhero.
oh, thank you. I don't
So,
know, I just enjoy what I am doing, I guess. I don't overthink things. I'm trying not to overthink things, so
well, I think one of the things that you and I have in common is that we really enjoy taking other people's classes. Like
yeah.
I'm not embarrassed to say that I thrive in an environment where I'm the student. Have
Yeah.
you ever thought about like some people like this is just from my personal observation. Some people only want to be the teacher and they never
Mm,
want to be the student. It's outside of
no,
their personality to be
yeah,
taking artistic direction from other
no,
people and that's fine.
mm,
That's I there's no
mm,
judgment. It's just that something
yeah.
I've observed about myself is that I love being the student. So do you also feel that way?
Oh, definitely. I feel like I'm still there's still so much to learn, and I'm constantly trying to learn different things. I'm very curious about so many things, and I think being a student always is a thing. If I could be a student forever, like even when I retire, if I retire, that I still want to be a student. And yeah, and I think that's what I was trying to when I mentioned in one of my posts is that one of my students said a student from Wonderlust and she said like, "Oh, I see you're using what what you've taught." And I said, "Yeah, I use things that I teach because for me it's another kind of I'm still kind of learning from what I'm teaching too." So,
Yeah, there's, like, not a separation really.
yeah.
It's like you're learning, you're teaching, you're learning more, right? You're learning from your own experience of even
Yeah.
trying to teach something. Actually, trying to
Yeah.
teach something is one of the greatest learning experiences that
Yeah.
I've had.
Yeah. Yeah, so totally agree with you. Yeah,
It's kind of fun to do both. It's like that's again, that's just something that you and I have in common is we're not trying
yeah,
to put ourselves out there as like I'm only a teacher. We're just like, no,
yeah,
we are constantly learning and
yeah,
if we're given the opportunity to teach, we'll teach, but like we want to learn all the time.
yeah. I have too many I signed up to too many classes that I haven't finished.
How okay,
And that struck me.
I don't want you to name all the classes you're signed up for, but how do you manage being like once I started Fodder School, I essentially stopped signing up for other classes because the management of Fodder School and then me doing the Fodder School projects is a
I
full-time
can
job in
imagine.
and of itself. So how do you manage taking all these different classes? You must be making a lot of art every day.
I wish. No, I'm right now it's more of trying to prioritize things, like what is it that is interesting or something that's manageable. So that's more of where my brain is right now, like doing things that I can manage to do. So, like I mentioned earlier, because of this 6-day holiday, so this is my opportunity to take it to create art every day and catch up on those lessons that I have not finished. But other than that, then when work week rolls around, then it's a matter of picking out what I can do for that day or for that amount of time that I have in that evening. And I've kind of learned through the years that I have to lessen my expectation, like not to be stressed about not getting things done, not getting everything done within the same like everyone else. So your constant reminder in the Fodder School newsletter that Fodder School is not a race, that kind of pulls me back from getting all stressed out that I haven't finished a lot of the lessons. So thank you for that.
Right,
And
like, the
that
whole thing
constant
about making
reminder.
art is, like, it's supposed to be pleasurable. It's
Yeah,
supposed
yeah,
to be fun and something that we add to our lives because we love it. It's none of these
yeah,
classes that anyone is offering
yeah,
is intended to create stress in people's lives.
yeah. But sometimes for some people it gets to be, oh, it's a race or is oh, I have to finish. And I know and I used to think like that. And oh no, I have to finish this. So I stay up all night and try to finish this. And then I realized, no, I need to step back and just do things that I can manage because I mean, in between the full-time job, I only have this X amount of time left. So I need to pick and choose to try to see what I could do for that night rather than getting everything done and racing to finish. So,
You are
yeah,
an incredibly hard worker and an incredibly highly productive human being because the fact that
thank
you
you.
are working full time and still doing so much art and also teaching. So what has it been like cuz you've gotten a lot of teaching opportunities I can see from your Instagram account. Obviously, you're being interviewed by me now, so you're having this teaching opportunity with Fodder School. So what's it been like adding the it is kind of there is an element of pressure to it. The pressure of having to produce edited video content and all of that
Mm.
to your already very busy schedule.
Yeah, it has been a challenge, but I think towards the end, it wasn't really the editing. Yeah, it turned out to be more work than I expected. But in the end, it was actually putting it together was quite fun. Was I don't know.
Well, it's a form of creativity. Creating an online course
Yeah.
is an art form in and of itself.
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think it's trying to put myself as a student into whatever I was going to put out, like trying to put myself as a student and see how to think about me as a student, like how would I understand this or would this be interesting for me or is this something that I could get some little nuggets of information from or yeah. And I think that's the thing that kept popping up into my head as I'm doing lessons and just basically making sure that I'm also having enjoying creating those things because a lot of those things that I'm creating for lessons are basically they're not completely formed like in terms of I exactly know 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 like this is how it's going to be. a lot of those are kind of like ad hoc, like they happen as I'm making them, and
Yeah.
which is kind of in a way fun because I'm also doing the things that I'm learning at the same time, like what you mentioned earlier that we're doing and learning at the same time.
I
And
think a lot of teaching is that. I think a lot of teaching is you have, like, the beginning of an idea of where you wanna go, but then there's also you have to be open to, like, what happens when you're creating, and that
yeah,
becomes the class that, like, you could never expect certain things are gonna happen, and then that's,
mhm,
like, the beauty of it.
yeah, yeah.
Is watching it emerge from the original kernel of an idea. So, okay, I have more questions for you. So, your urban sketching is incredible. Your illustration is incredible. Is that something that you developed when you were in design school, when you went to the Chinese painting school, or is this something that just developed afterward? Like, walk me through. I mean, there's two things going on: the urban sketching, and then the just
Mhm.
straight up like illustration of household objects, or you're so talented, you're blowing my mind. Okay,
Well,
talk to me about
thank
that.
well, I went to university before computers were introduced, so everything was all handmade, hand painted, and hand sketched and everything. So, but then when you start to work, then it's not really there's not a lot of sketching that goes on. So I actually just started to get back into sketching when I was starting with the urban sketching. So I started to practice with doing what I see. And yeah, and with Chinese painting it completely turned my art practice upside down because Chinese painting is not like the Western painting or not the way I was taught in university with painting, whereas it's more of a form of self-expression. So you paint, you can even paint with black if that's all you want, or you could have a red skin on a person. That's a sort of self-expression, right? That's how what you want to draw, then that's acceptable in the Western eyes. But in for Chinese painting, everything had to be copied, and also you have to start you have to keep doing the same thing over and over again. So this completely like threw me off when I started Chinese painting. I had to repeat this huge painting that I just for this one particular class because each class was patterned like it was set for 1 month. You learn about figure drawing. And so this figure drawing, I had to constantly repeat it. Like, I think I probably painted it like about 10 times before the teacher said, okay, you can now start painting it on a silk substrate. And even then, I had to follow certain rules that of how you're going to add the colors on and how you're all those details, which is completely different from how I was taught. And so in urban sketching, that's when I started to get back into actually sketching and especially trying to use fountain pen because with fountain pen you actually don't have the luxury of erasing and redoing your artwork. You basically draw one line and that's it. That's there. You can't wash it off. And that's the great thing about sketching with fountain pen because you kind of lose the fear of not drawing it right. And it kind of trains you a bit to just go with the flow and go with your a bit more intuitive how do you strokes of how you're sketching certain things. I don't know if that
Wow.
makes sense. So when I switched from pencil to fountain pen, that gave me a bit more freedom in terms of trying to sketch something within a short period of time and trying not to or letting go perfectionism. Is that is
Yeah,
that
that makes sense to me. It's like
perfectionism
once you
exists?
have that mark on the paper, there's no going back. But
Yeah,
that
yeah.
gives your work this incredible, beautiful quality of imperfection and
Mhm.
wonkiness that if you were doing with a pencil, you'd try to be
Yeah,
so perfect, and it's so much
yeah.
more interesting that it's not perfect. So, I'm looking back to your work from 2018 where you're working with a fountain pen and you're doing these incredibly detailed, like botanical patternings. Is this something that you just thought up on your own or was this from a course? Because it looks so fun.
2018. Okay, I'll try.
2018, you have a graph paper book and you've got, let's say, like a
Oh,
blue fountain pen, and you are doing the most incredible patterning of
yeah.
botanical shapes and like
Oh,
repetitive mark making. It looks like each one of these would take hours upon hours, but that it would be like you would be in flow state doing it.
yeah, yeah. That was actually all intuitive. It was not a course. It was just something that I just felt like I needed to slow down. So that was one of those exercises that I just did at night and just forget about things, just a way to unwind. So it was just see where the pen would go, like what shape I would end up. So there
Okay,
was
I kinda want you to make a course for my platform. I kinda want this to be its own course.
oh, okay.
Let's talk off the podcast. This is incredible what you've done.
Oh, okay.
You may not wanna go back to it, it's from a long time ago, but I
No,
would
I
love.
sometimes do that, but it's just I don't share it as much anymore.
Really,
But
this is so gorgeous, and I love how you're saying that you just start somewhere and that you
yeah,
let your intuition take you
yeah,
someplace, but, like, I wouldn't even know where to begin, and I wouldn't have any idea how to work with a fountain pen, and you're also working with the most delicious ink colors, and I don't know anything about fountain pens at all.
yeah, they're my way of being good to the planet, so not buying disposable pens.
Okay, so you're refilling the ink in the pen?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So how many fountain pen oh, and they're gorgeous, the nibs.
yeah.
I think I
Yeah,
actually
I
have
only have
fountain
one that I keep that really is a really good pen that I feel like is really worth having. It's the TWSBI pen,
okay.
TWSBI, and the Eco one is the cheapest one. And that actually is a pen that I carry for urban sketching sometimes, or just for anywhere for just writing because the nib doesn't really get stuck. Like I could use it even if I haven't used the pen in a few months. I could still, when I use it again, it's not stuck or dry up the ink, which is great. Yeah.
When do you have you're saying you have 1 pen, and if you wanna change the ink color, you just empty that ink back into its
Yeah,
container
yeah,
and then
yeah,
fill it with a different ink color, so that's kind of a beautiful thing that you just need 1 pen.
yeah. But of course, you could also have several pens. Like I ended up having several pens, but it's still the same brand. It's just that I switch between different colors if I
What is
want.
the brand again?
TWSBI.
That is
It's
so
a
cool, and do they
Taiwanese
make
brand.
their own ink that you fill it with?
Yeah, they have their own inks, but you could also get lots of other specialty inks.
There's a whole world of that I know
Yeah,
nothing
yeah,
about. So,
yeah.
those drawings remind me of something that I did recently. I love folk art florals.
Oh,
I've
yeah, I
loved it
saw the
for
hands
years.
that you did. Yeah.
Yeah, and I started just filling up pages of, like, not even a handmade art journal, just like a commercially made sketchbook. I just started drawing them, and then after I would draw them, I started filling in the in-between spaces,
Oh,
like
okay.
circles, and then I
Mhm.
would let the ink dry, and then I would go back in and fill in those circles with marker, but each page takes days and days and days for me
Mm.
to do. But this looks so delicious. You're really making me wanna get a fountain pen, and I just I'm smitten. Okay, I'm smitten by this exercise.
Yeah, it is. It really, I thought was very calming because I wasn't. I remember when I was doing those, they were just just numbing myself, like seeing where the pen would go or where the pattern was going. So I would turn the page around and see wherever it was going. So
So you say numbing yourself, but people numb themselves with alcohol and drugs. This always ends up coming up on almost every podcast episode that I do. It's like if that's how you numb yourself, that is such a functional way of living your life.
oh, yeah, it's more of just I think not thinking about things, like just letting go.
Yeah, but that's healthy. Like if we carried around every stress of our own lives and every stress of the world all the
Mm,
time, that
yeah,
would not be healthy. We have to have a
yeah,
release valve.
yeah. I think yeah. I mean, I would recommend if me to try this kind of approach of letting go and just calming down after a day.
Your whole entire Instagram feed is like a feast for the artistic eyes. I cannot
Oh,
get over it. I've never done the dive into your account where I go back to the beginning. I can't believe
2000,
I've
you
never
went down
done
to
it.
2018.
Yes, I'm right. I'm only at two. I want to go back all the way to the beginning now, and I just want to take classes from you and like have you teach me.
Oh,
These are so phenomenal.
oh, thank you. I don't know
So
what to
phenomenal.
say.
Okay. I'm gonna let you go because it's late at night. It's very late. It's 11 o'clock at night by you, right?
Yeah.
Alright, you're probably about to go make a bunch of art till 2 o'clock in the morning though, aren't you?
Yeah. No, I was going to finish the January Fodder School, but then I was seeing everyone else's April Fodder School, and I thought I'd finish that too. So there's so many things I want to finish.
I know you'll get it all done because you always do. Alright, I'm gonna make myself lunch, and I'm just gonna
Okay.
literally go back to the beginning of your Instagram account and start from the
Okay.
beginning.
Okay.
Alright, I'll be in touch because 'cause I'm in
All
love.
right.
Alright. Thank
Thank
you
you
for
so much, Wendy,
thank you for
and you
coming
have a good day.
on.
No
Thank you for
problem.
saying yes to being a fodder school teacher, and thank you for
Thank
just
you.
being the wonderful, magical human that you are.
Thank you so much for inviting me. This was such an honor
You
and
know,
to
you
be
deserve it. You're amazing. Alright, have a wonderful rest of your night. Have fun making art.
thank you as you take care.
Thank you. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.